Welcome to the TechConnect podcast, where we explore the evolving intersection of innovation, risk, and technology in construction and insurance. I'm your host, Chris Green, Vice President of Innovation and Insights at American Global. At American Global, we believe that building smarter doesn't just come from better tools. It comes from better thinking. And that's why today's conversation is so important. I'm joined by someone who is fundamentally rethinking how we learn, grow, and lead through change. Nancy Rogie, our Senior Vice President of Learning, Development, and Technology. Nancy brings a unique perspective that blends human behavior, psychology, and practical learning design with the latest in tech. Her work has helped shape our organization and helped us adapt, support talent, and align people's strategies with real business outcomes. Welcome to the TechConnect podcast. This is episode number 3, and I'm happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your role, your life? What's a day in the life of Nancy look like?
So first and foremost, I'm a mom, working mom. I had learning and development and technology at American Global. I graduated from Georgia Tech years and years ago now. So I've always kind of had this tech side of my brain. And I actually graduated from Georgia Tech with a psychology degree, which is unlike many people who graduate from a technical institute. So I've also always had this human behavior side of looking at things. I spent 15 years or so as a client executive working directly with clients in the insurance industry, specific to commercial insurance and most of the time in construction. And then it was a little after about 15 years that I transitioned more into an operational role and decided I wanted to really start using those skills that I had teaching people and guiding people.
So, I mean, it's a very interesting intersection of the behavioral aspect with psychology and, the technicality of graduating from Georgia Tech. Did you kind of find this role, or did this role kind of find you based on your experience? How did that kind of come about?
Yeah, the role that I'm in right now definitely found me. We kind of created this role and it's evolved over time and it continues to evolve. I, like many people in the insurance industry specifically, fell into insurance. We all like to use that terminology. Georgia Tech doesn't even have a risk management program. So I fell into insurance, and then over time, I forged my own path, and this role has evolved alongside my career.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's not something that you would traditionally think of when you think of insurance or construction or even working at a brokerage, right? But I'm glad the two intersections found each other because we definitely have a lot of great things happening at American Global because of you. Just talking about like some personal life experiences, what has kind of influenced your approach in the way you lead and the way you take things on with this entire role that you kind of created for yourself?
I think one thing I've always been good at is reading people. So I think that comes down to emotional intelligence and seeing how people are interacting with others and their environment, and seeing where maybe there's friction. And a natural inclination of mine is always to improve process or experience. So reducing that friction is always something I've been interested in and naturally gravitate towards to improve the human experience in whatever setting you're in.
So you started off as an account exec, right? That was the first part of your career here. Was there some point in time where you just realized that like, hey, I can just improve the processes, the people around me, the way we do business? How was that kind of gradual change? How did that come about?
Yeah, well, if you reverse all the way back, I started in the industry on the broker side as an account associate. So doing the grunt work, right? And the very mundane and repetitive tasks. And that was before everything really went digital. And I remember even then thinking, there's got to be better and faster ways of doing a lot of these things. But when you're 22 and you're the low man on the totem pole, you don't really feel like you have the authority to raise your voice and create change. So I always voiced ideas, and sometimes those ideas were acted upon and sometimes they weren't. But I think, as I worked through my career, I just continued that desire to think differently. And I always question myself and also teach other people to question. If you're doing something that's really time consuming or seems repetitive, stop and think, is there a better way to do this?
I think, just hearing you talk, like you noticing people and noticing how they behave, how they work. It sounds like you took it like from a little bit of a bird's eye view perspective, right? Outside looking in, seeing people how they process information and how they process change. I know change management is always a tough part for both individuals and any company. But how do you kind of approach that philosophy of understanding how people kind of ingest change and deal with change when, first of all, our industry is very archaic, right? Both construction and insurance. So how do you approach that? It must be a tough thing to do.
Change management is definitely the hardest part of my job. I was actually just talking with some colleagues about this. Everybody's excited about technology and new products. And I said, we can buy all the best products and all the best technology, but if nobody's using it, that money is just being wasted. And so the hardest part of my job is to get people to actually use the processes, the products, the tech that we put in front of them. So I think the first thing is understanding change is hard for everybody. That's a human universal. I think there's nobody who says, I love change and keep throwing new things my way all day, every day. And so just being empathetic to that. And then I think I always reverse engineer the change, right? And I start with, why is this change beneficial? And showing the people who are going to be affected by the change why it's beneficial and getting buy-in first. Because the buy-in is critical. It eliminates that resistance piece as much as you can eliminate it. And then inevitably you'll have some champions who really help to push that change amongst the rest of the population. And ultimately get there, but I think you also have to have patience and understand that if you're going to implement something new, it's not going to happen in a day's time or a week's time or even a couple of months' time. That these are long-term processes that take time, they take patience, and you have to give people that grace.
Yeah, it sounds like you're operating on two ends of the spectrum, right? And I've seen you problem solve if we have to review a new technology or if we have to just talk about change in general, right? Going from the left to just understanding people and their behavior to the far extremes of like the technicalities of the actual software or hardware or whatever we're talking about, right? And kind of finding the balance in between there. Do you find that like dealing with different people, is there like a science behind this, or do you have to kind of remain a little bit more fluid with different people and different projects in the company?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's a science, but there's a methodology. But you do have to be fluid because at the end of the day, it's people that you're dealing with, not products, and not just tech. And so you have to adapt your messaging to your listener. You have to adapt your change management to your learner and your end user. So I think I get really technical with the product people, and I like to understand where there's going to be speed bumps or hiccups along the way. I like to understand where workarounds are going to be required, and I like to be upfront with our end users about those things as much as I can from the beginning, because I think setting expectations is an important part of change management as well. And so if you tell people this new solution or this new process or this new workflow is going to completely change your life, and once they get in there and they start to run into hurdles and they have to develop workarounds, you've lost a little bit of trust, and then they're frustrated because they thought this was going to be a seamless change, and it's not, and it never is a seamless change.
Yeah, and I've heard you say that people like, hey, there's going to be a transition, get ready for it. It may not be that easy, but at the same time, here's all the benefits that you're going to get once you get through the other end of the tunnel, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. It's always harder up front, and it's a delayed gratification most of the time when you're talking about corporate change management. And that again is hard for just the human population in general, delayed gratification. Mm-hmm. There's psychological study after psychological study about instant gratification versus delayed gratification. And if you can get past that initial learning curve to that gratification, that's when you see adoption really become seamless.
Mm-hmm. And what does that cycle look like with initiatives, maybe both micro and macro? Is it like a continuous improvement across your career that you see, like, fighting this good fight? Or do you see like real impactful wins along the way?
Yeah, I would say both. It is a continuous improvement, but you also see real impactful wins along the way. But I think when it comes to change management and innovation, you never reach the end. You never reach the pinnacle. It's a continued climb. But there are wins along the way, and it's in efficiency gains. It's in hearing people be relieved about something that was previously frustrating that's no longer frustrating. Hearing the client experience get better, hearing the colleague experience get better. So sometimes it's anecdotal, and sometimes there's a numeric ROI that we can point to. So both of those are the wins that keep you climbing.
So you have to measure both, right? Like just talking to people, getting their feedback. That's kind of the measurement for ROI on the people side.
Right.
And then a little bit more numeric on the technical side, right? So why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the technology initiatives that you're kind of launching at American Global?
So again, I always go back to increasing efficiency and productivity, and then also increasing the human experience. So those are kind of the two things that drive me when I think about implementing change or starting a new initiative. And sometimes you can do both at the same time. A lot of the new technology that's emerging is meant to make you faster at what you're doing, but also improve the experience. So that's a win with just one change. And so one of the things that we're doing with respect to clients is making it easier for them to get us their information that we need to evaluate their risk and put together insurance programs. And in the past, that was all done through email and documents sent back and forth, and a lot of back and forth, a lot of confusion, a huge time-consuming task that we would dedicate weeks to. So we're digitizing that whole process, making it more of a portal experience, a self-access experience versus the client having to constantly contact us through email or phone to deliver information. So that's making us quicker. It's making us better because we're more organized and things aren't falling through the cracks. And it's improving the overall experience because it's more pleasant, it's less time consuming, and it's less burdensome.
I hate to say the buzzword AI, but it's everywhere in our industry right now. I think people are trying to figure out how to use it, where to use it. I know your stand at American Global is very different, and you're embracing it in very big ways. So can you talk a little bit about how you're doing that?
Yeah, AI is showing up everywhere, right? Microsoft has Copilot that's built into Outlook, and Adobe has an AI tool built into Adobe. Obviously there's generative AI tools like ChatGPT and Perplexity and Gemini, and you can name a whole bunch of them. And then there's AI tools when it comes to graphics and graphic design and artwork. You could probably spend an entire career just testing AI tools in the corporate setting and seeing what works. We have adopted ChatGPT at American Global, in a team subscription with ChatGPT, and it's proven invaluable for most of our colleagues. It's one of the changes that we made recently that's probably having the most impact on people's day-to-day lives, both at work and personally, I would guess. So we've taken the approach of starting with something that is broad, right? A broad tool that can be applied in so many different ways versus trying to piece together 15 different very specific tools that people would need to use in various programs.
And I know, you're kind of famous around here for your saying, think AI first. What does that mean? Can you tell us a little bit about how people should approach AI in their daily lives and work?
Sure. And I also say that I don't think we're here to be replaced by AI. I think we're here to be amplified by AI, which is why I think AI first, because amplify whatever it was that you were about to do by using AI. So, if a complex task comes across your desk or your manager asks for a quick report on client engagements or whatever it is that happens to come across your desk, if you're not thinking AI first, you're probably starting with your old habits of doing work. And whether that's manually collecting documents or sitting down with a bunch of papers to go through things and analyze and brainstorm, you're probably spending a lot of time prepping for whatever product or deliverable you want to send that you could speed up tremendously with AI. And so I say think AI first, because I think that it can get you to the execution of your work product 5 times faster at a minimum than you would get there by yourself, which just frees up your time to then tackle those other things that are on your plate, or get to maybe the more advanced things and the more strategic things that you want to work on that you never have time for because you're always stuck in the day-to-day.
Is that more of like I mean, it sounds like it's technical, but how much of that has impacted American Global's culture in the way we go forward? Because I know you just kind of wrapped up with me the roadshow, right? AI across
Which
every
was so
office.
fun.
So yeah, I mean, that was great. The feedback that we got was fantastic. So what impact have you seen culturally at American Global? Because I know like it's been buzzing across the entire company, right? And I know people are so happy that we're providing this to them.
Yeah.
But what have you noticed?
Yeah, there's excitement around it, and there's a lot less fear than I think there was. There's a lot less mystery. There was also kind of like, prior to really embracing this publicly and training people on it, I think there was this like hush hush, like, are you using ChatGPT? And now people are willing to say like, oh my gosh, I just used ChatGPT on this project and it helped me so much. Or even the reverse. I just tried ChatGPT on this and it was wrong and it didn't help me. But there's so much more information sharing, which just furthers the collaboration that happens at the company, which is one of our key values. So it's funny that a tool that you access through your computer, kind of in a singular environment, is actually enhancing collaboration with humans. So it's the opposite, and it's counterintuitive to what you would think, that sitting down with an AI tool at your computer is making you more human and making you more social than not having that tool.
I've noticed that too. And you can almost imagine that, like, without giving people the proper guidance and training in how to use it, you can use it very badly. Right?
Absolutely.
But that's why I'm glad that American Global has taken this stand to embrace the change, and actually provide people the proper guidance in how to use it properly.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like driving a car. You could give your teenage son or daughter the keys to the car with no training, and they're going to crash it. And it's a very bad outcome. But if you give them training, you can feel good about letting them take the car out for whatever errand you need them to run, or any social event that they want to go to.
Yeah, it's interesting. And do you think we're just kind of like cracking the egg, or starting to get started on this stuff?
Oh, yeah.
And what do you see as far as like, future change? Like, where do you think this will go in 5 to 10 years from now?
We're definitely just cracking the egg, and I don't even know that we've made more than one tiny crack in the egg.
Yeah.
I think that we'll probably look back on this podcast in a year, and it'll be our views will be completely different, or our insights and our takeaways will be different. We're very much at the entry level with generative AI when it comes to the average user. Everyone still thinks like, oh, it's going to help me respond to an email better, or it can help me, write an article for LinkedIn. And
the
that's
basic stuff.
That's like the 0.1% that it can do.
Yeah.
I think that as time goes by, we're going to find ways to be more strategic with AI tools, and whether it's generative AI or those kind of specialized AI tools I referenced earlier, we're going to figure out ways to not just increase productivity on day-to-day tasks and kind of administrative things, but be really strategic with it. We're going to allow it to be a brainstorming assistant, a decision-making assistant, always with the human in the driver's seat. But I think that we're going to be using it for so much more than just responding to an email or generating a funny image of our pet, wearing sunglasses.
And that's how we all start with, right? I mean, we've seen it with our own eyes, people just getting pictures of crazy cats doing crazy things, but they slowly learn that, like, this is really helping me in an impactful way, but they have to figure out for themselves a lot of the times, right?
Yeah, and that was one of the mistakes I think I made early when I was pitching this to leadership and really trying to get some momentum behind this, was trying to explain the use cases, trying to say, this is how we can use it. And sure, there has to be a little bit of that, but the use case has to be identified by the individual. I can't predict how each department, how each employee, and how people in various roles are going to use this effectively. There's endless use cases. And I think that is, once you grasp that concept, as a leader or as somebody who is making the decision around implementing AI, that is really where the aha moment is realizing there's endless use cases and each person is going to use it differently and find new successes.
Yeah. And I know like we can hardly keep up with all the updates and changes almost on a weekly basis, right? So I am excited to see when we look back at this a year or 2 or 5 years from now, like how things have changed. It'll be very exciting. So I don't think we can even imagine what that world might look like just yet.
I don't think so, but I do know that there's going to be a lot more development around collaboration with AI.
Yeah.
I think, right now these individual releases of AI is focused on a one-on-one user experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what the AI product developers are finding is that people want to use AI to collaborate with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is going to tremendously change in the next couple of years.
Corporately speaking, bringing in new talent, young talent, I'm sure that just this messaging, getting this out there, has impacted all of that stuff because the next generation, they're so excited about this stuff. They're already using it. In schools, they're changing the way education is made. If you were to kind of redesign that whole structure of talent and development and bringing people in this new kind of age, what would that look like?
Yeah, so this is, I think, probably going to sound counterintuitive as well. So many companies and learning platforms and onboarding best practices are steering people to a digital experience of like self-guided learning through videos or a learning management system or a learning portal. And that stuff is important as a supplement. But what I have found is the human element is critical with talent development, especially young talent coming out of college. They've never worked in a corporate environment. And you can't teach those things through a video on a screen, or you could try, but most of the time, you lose interest and there's not a high level of engagement. So really what I would love to see happen is everything shift to kind of a cohort-based onboarding and training program where cohorts of people, whether it's based on start date or your role or your department, get together and you learn in person.
Mm-hmm.
And then the leave behind tools are those self-paced learnings or those tutorial videos or the learning management system where you can go back and refresh on some of the things that you talked about in person. But for me, I think that I would swing the opposite way when it comes to new talent coming in the door. And I would say focus first on in-person, which sounds a little old school, but using those innovative technologies from a learning perspective as a supplement.
I mean, not that there's anything wrong with old school, but like I do see how you kind of like close the loop here, right? Like you kind of came back around with going from AI to the human aspect of this, which I think you keeping an eye on that whole process has been what's made you in this role very successful at American Global.
Yeah, I definitely think you cannot separate the two.
Yeah.
Somehow they have to be, the decisions around technology have to be made with the decisions around talent and human behavior.
Yeah.
And whether that's all funneling through one person or one department like it is at American Global, or those two people that are managing those things are constantly connected, I think it's vital to the success of both.
Okay, interesting. We're entering the lightning round part.
Oh, the lightning round. Okay, great.
So just some fun questions, just to get to know you a little bit more personally. So first one, what's one tool that you can't live without?
ChatGPT.
Okay, I'm not surprised at that one. A book or podcast that you would always recommend?
I love Unlocking Us by Brené Brown, the podcast.
Okay, and what's that one about?
Brené Brown does a lot of work in the leadership space and human psychology, especially in a corporate setting at work. So she usually interviews, it could be anybody from a celebrity to a psychologist to a politician. So there's lots of different perspectives, but it's all about kind of understanding the human element of work and job satisfaction and job performance.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it seems right up your alley. What is your go-to coffee order?
My go-to coffee order is with my husband at home because I'm very specific about my coffee. So I like Nut Pods, which is a non-dairy creamer. But the key is that it has to be warmed up and frothed with a handheld frother, or if you have an actual steam frother. About 5 drops of a stevia sweetener. I like either a little MCT oil or olive oil in there with some collagen powder, and then finally my coffee. And we do use an espresso machine at home, which I absolutely love because it gives you a nice foamy top, which just makes it feel like a luxurious experience in the morning.
That sounds fantastic. I mean, I thought I was technical with my coffee, but you just took it to a whole new level. So.
Starbucks has not been able to perform against my husband when it comes to my morning coffee order.
Great. You have your own barista in the house.
I do.
Awesome. Well, Nancy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for welcoming me in Atlanta and being such a gracious host here.
Yes.
Definitely enjoying the nice weather. Your work reminds us that innovation isn't just about tech. It's about people. And when you put the right people and tools who are ready to learn, the possibilities are really endless with this stuff. For those listening, we hope today's episode sparks some ideas on how to build better, think differently, and drive meaningful change. Thank you for tuning in to TechConnect, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you, Chris.